Good afternoon, everybody. Just want to welcome you here to this session. My name is Mike Rowicki. I am with Fulton County government. I work as the Director of Strategy and Performance Management for this organization. I've been doing this work for about 7 years currently with our department under the Office of the County Manager. Our job is to look at data informations, project management, bringing all of the data on the services, the people that we serve together, and to see how we can improve services across the county. So today I'm going to kind of talk to you guys about a project that we're working with called Stepping Up. And with that, some of those items that we dealt with are the data analytics and how we actually migrated or importing data into our systems in order to better serve residents and provide services to the people that are in the justice system. So one of the things we'll actually be doing is looking at how we connect our data. How do we get our community partners involved and connected with the information and the data that we use? How do we share that data across the board so everybody has access to the data? And then how do we improve? Our biggest thing is customer service, and how do we improve in quality of services for our community members? So just to raise a hand, how many people deal with data information all the time, and you're going to search for the data and somebody says, I need to see this, I need to understand this, what can you do for me? But when they give you that file, it looks like what's up here on the screen, okay? With our government, we had all kinds of paper documents everywhere. People had to get used to how do we take these documents, transform the services that they do, go all digital, how do they enter the information to make it useful for us? So some days I feel like the guy in the middle, especially when we start with new groups that haven't done it before and getting them to understand what it can do for them and how it can improve their services. So again, I feel your pain if you do this on a regular basis. It happens to us all. So one of the things that happened about 5 years ago is we had to go out and find a solution for what it is that we were trying to do. So we did a request for proposals. We went out and looked at about 20 different vendors. In the end, we ended up with Tyler Technologies, who again is in partnership with AWS in terms of the cloud services that we have. Again, our biggest things was how do we deliver the services better to our communities? Another big item was transparency. As a government official, as compared to private, we have to make everything open, transparent. If somebody wants a record that is available, we have to give it to them. So our goal was to how do we provide all this information, data to them, but they don't have to come and ask us directly for it. They can go online and get it. And with the Tyler systems, we can actually do that. The other part that we were looking for is everything that we do, we want to make sure that it's scalable, it's cost effective, and if there is information within the system that is private information, we want to make sure that nobody has access to it. Again, through this partnership with Tyler, the Fulton County and AWS, we actually got what it is that we're looking for, because we can start small with a project and scale it up as we collect that data and make it available to the public. And then our big goal was data for us is power and how we actually improve services. So we actually work with our executive team on a daily basis, reviewing information, drilling into budgets, drilling into the people that are being served or that need to be served to identify where our resources, which are limited, need to be. So again, overall, looking at the system, seeing what is available to us, scalable, and improving services. With the Tyler technology, what we came up with is a concept that we called, it's in the middle in the green cloud, is Share Fulton. But we had to look at all the pieces that were coming into this information and the data. So we have internal sources, we have external public sources that we collect, and we had to figure out how to work with our partners that might be nonprofit agencies, they might be some corporations that we're dealing with, to import their private sector information that they had to make available to us through their contracts. How do we take that information? How do we export it into our systems, clean the data, and then transform it and make it usable in our cloud basis? With that, then we would want to look at information that was meant to be internal, information that was meant to be external published. So we had to break it out into what our external users are and what our internal users are. And with that, and with our system, we can actually designate which specific piece of information, if somebody needs a login, if somebody needs access through the public, we can make it public. But if it is not meant to be public, we have those key restrictions that allow it not to be. And the big thing here with the systems was, without the cloud base, all of the servers, all of the infrastructure that we would have to build internally at the county for people to be able to go in and out of the system would never be capable with us to actually maintain at a cost-effective manner. So the cloud is where everything is at. It's cost-effective for us. We get the speed that we need for public to actually work through our data, get the information back and forth within seconds, if they sort, filter, look through it at all points in time. With that, this is a homepage that we came up with for our Share Fulton. This is an internal page that we use as a county government. Again, it looks at 40+ departments where we've collected data information. It looks at allowing those department directors and, as we make things public, the public to actually dig into that data. Again, through the data and information, there are filters available. People can search through dates, and they're getting, again, data is returning back to them within seconds on what it is that they would want to see information about. And the biggest thing is we make an impact on performance through this overall. And that project, the Stepping Up initiative, will show you how we've actually made a difference with that. So one of the challenges that comes to us every day is we started this great project, people got used to it, they're like, okay, this is useful. I can use this to do this. So now we've kind of created our own monster, is that people now see it as useful, they want the information, and they want it now. So we have tons of requests coming in, but we've got limited staff to do it. So again, we work through prioritizing projects, but the Stepping Up initiative is one of those where we can actually make a huge community impact. Fulton County's budget, 40% of it goes to the justice systems. So when you're talking $1 billion budget for us as a county government, with 40% of it going to justice, how you can actually work with the justice agencies to improve services, maybe not jail as many people, get people tied up with services that they might need, is a key as to how we can save dollars and not have to look at, which we're currently looking at as an option, is do we need to spend $500 million to build a new jail? And that's not what we want to do if we don't have to. So the Stepping Up initiative is a national initiative to reduce the number of people with mental illness that are in the jails. There are lots of people that are called repeat offenders. These repeat offenders show up on the systems all the time, getting arrested for minor crimes, doing things that are out there that most of us would consider nuisance crimes. But they might end up in the jail because there's no other place to take them. okay? So this is a partnership with these organizations that are up there with NACO, the Justice Center, the American Psychiatric Association, to kind of look at what are the options, what can organizations across the country do as governments and nonprofit and public sector to actually improve and not house these people in the jails. But one of the big issues that we had was, how do we see all of these organizations that are out there that have to support the people that are being served? A lot of times you get into meetings with these things, people are talking about big picture policy issues. They're not talking about the person. In order to be effective in this program, you have to get down to identifying the person, understanding what that person's needs are. So our challenge was, how do we take it from a macro level to a micro level to identify that person, wrap around services to that person that are specific to their needs. And one of the challenges is, some of these people go back and forth between different nonprofits, different agencies for behavioral health services, and they'll shop around. So getting that continuity of care for that person to make sure that they're staying in the programs, they're doing the things that they need to do, following up with them for the care, is key to the success. Because one of the rules that we go by is that usually when it comes to our resources, about 80% of the resources will go to about 20% of the people that need these types of services. So our key is, how do we make it more fair? How do we get that 20% of the people to not need as many services, so therefore we can either reduce cost, look at efficiencies, or look at other programs that are needed at that point in time. So, and one of the key things in this program is we're dealing with legal systems, our justice agencies, mental health providers. So all that HIPAA information that may be out there, again, you don't want people to see all of the diagnosis and see those medical details that are out there. We deal with housing. So if somebody needs to be housed, how do we get them identified, matched up with a housing provider that meets their needs? One of the other groups that is up here with the legal system is the police departments. How can we actually look at a police department, a sheriff that's out there, or a police officer, have them, when they're going to make a check or stop somebody, actually be able to tap into data that would identify that person, and if they see that they're in crisis for a behavioral health issue, identify where they need to go. Do they need to go to the jail? Do they need to go to a service provider? Do they need to go to an alternative treatment program? So that was the key and the issue, and how do we do that? And we actually had to work through this process. We had a mental health task force, which is a bunch of all of these agencies together working through this. And if anybody knows, when you get about 100 different people, agencies in a room, trying to collaborate and get all in agreement, yeah, it isn't easy. It takes a lot of time. So we actually had to work for about 2 years to get them all to agree to a plan that this is what we want to do. This is how we want it to be set up. This is how we want it to actually work and operate. And one of the big things that we had to tell them at times was no. I know that's never easy to tell anybody, no, you can't have that. But the key here was the privacy issue. That privacy issue on that HIPAA information, people really wanted to know how they could best serve, and their intent was all to the best as to serving the person. But they wanted to see what was the medical diagnosis, what was, what medications you're on, those types of things. And we said, legally, we can't do that. So what we actually have done is come up with a program that we're working with Tyler and AWS on, that will actually take information, import it from all of these agencies, with those dispatching agencies, police agencies, behavioral health, housing, medical, first responders, any of those agencies. We're going to take that data. We're working with them. We're then taking that, pulling that up into our cloud-based servers. With that cloud-based servers, what we're actually doing is creating dashboards. With those dashboards, we're looking at, performance information. We're looking at financial insight. We tie all this stuff to budgets as well. If we know what people are spending, what it costs us to actually do this, and then we take that information and compare, are we actually saving dollars or are we spending more dollars? Is it effective for what we're doing? And then we want to optimize anything that we're doing operationally. With that, we then take that information, and as I said, privacy is the key. People wanted a lot of information, but what we agreed that we could do is once we have the information, and most of these people have first name, last name, date of birth, social security number, and like if they've been in the jail or something like that, they usually have a picture in our systems. So we can take all that information, generalize it. A police officer could go out on the street, pick up somebody, then query that person based off the information that they get. That system will then pull up a picture of that person, again, clarify what their name, date of birth, social security, address, age, race, just for verification. Now, we know there's a lot of people out there might be John Smiths several times. In our justice database, there's Mickey Mouse, because somebody bills it, I was Mickey Mouse. But what we'll actually do is it'll give them a list, say 15 to 20 different people. If it has the picture with it, then they can actually use that to identify the person and verify that that's who it is. And the new technology that we're bringing on board is actually when police officers are going out, there actually is a thumbprint that they're actually going to be able to scan. And then they can use that to identify the person specifically in the database. That's coming. We're just working through some items with that. But that'll be key as to what the individuals will actually get back to help identify what is out there. Then also from that, we'll actually do the dashboards to look at this generally. We'll take those, aggregate the data, publish that data out there for the public to see as to how the programs are working. Therefore, again, we'll keep the privacy information, the operational information that is needed in detail level within the department's internal and the agencies, and keep the public informed on what the big picture issues are and what it is that we're doing. So a couple of the items that we look at is everything that we do, we look at from the theory that what gets measured gets managed. So if you aren't measuring it, it isn't going to get managed. Somebody's going to ignore it. So we look at it from our county manager is a private sector guy. He was a vice president of Bell South. He looks at everything from that standpoint. So we have to set targets for each of our programs. So for this program, again, a 5% annual reduction in the average jail population, 10% annual reduction in jail bookings. So on a yearly basis, we have about 50,000 bookings at the jail. So, and with that, you're going to get about just under 5,000 bookings that you're going to try and reduce. A person staying in the jails, average cost is $90 a day. Okay? You start adding that up, you start to see where if you can reduce those costs, you start to get savings out of this type of program. Now, it does not mean that it will all be 100% savings, cost reduction for taxes. We take some of those cost savings and they have to be switched over to those additional services that these people might need. So we're expecting about 50% of that savings will actually be put back into services to make sure that these people are getting behavioral health treatment, they're getting housing treatment, they're getting the things that they need to be self-supported and become a productive part of society, as we all would like to see. So again, 10% annual increase in post-release connections to care. We want to make sure, again, that continuum of care remains in place. 5% annual reduction in recidivism. You'd be surprised at the number of people that show up in the jail time and time again. At one point in time, when we did this program, and we've got part of this data that we worked with, which I'll share with you guys, looks at what we call friendly faces. Those are our repeat offenders. So one of the people that we found was arrested over 200 times. Okay? But it's for minor things, but he keeps on coming back out. We got to figure out what services will keep that person out of the jail. And if the average stay for that person once they're booked into the jail is 45 days, and you start multiplying, there's a lot of resources that are spent on that. So again, that's why we kind of look at what the information is telling us, what can we do to actually help serve people, how do we measure the progress that we're making, and again, everything has to have the results tied to it. And overall, what we actually think over a 5-year period, what we might actually save per year is about, if we get this fully operational, everybody's on board, you could save about $15 to $20 million a year. You start adding that up year after year, I mean, we're going to get to that 50 million mark of savings real quick as to what we can do. And again, we'll help hundreds of people actually become self-sufficient. So examples of what we've done with stepping up, here are some dashboards that we've created for them. So we look at, again, how many people are being recidivating within the programs. We look at the number of people that are homeless, identify them with our data information that we import from our homeless management information system. We look at the jail data, how many of these people are actually in the jails, how many of them, again, are repeat offenders. We actually have jail screenings that come in for our behavioral health that we created web forms for. So if somebody goes into the jail, they get a behavioral health screening. We identify whether they are identified as just having a behavioral health issue or they're not. Again, tying them back to a service that they need. We look at the different types of charges these people are being charged with or being brought into the jails for. So therefore we can identify, is there something that we need to do with the police agencies in order to either prevent those crimes from happening or how they can take those people to an alternative source. If somebody jaywalked and they get arrested because they were homeless and they were do we really need them in the jail because they jaywalked? What can we do? Where can we take them? If somebody's drunk out on the street, do we need to take them to the jail where they can sit for 45 days, or can we take them to an alternative site? And those are, again, looking at all this data and information, again, we break it down by age, race, anything that we can dig into, we try and group it together to see what effect we're having in what communities to make sure that we're making the impact. So when we looked at some of this information, again, that friendly faces, those people that are repeat offenders, we took the top 100 of those. So we have 1.5% of the bookings were for our friendly faces people, which cost us about $3.1 million a year for Fulton County. For the Atlanta Detention Center, 1.5% of the bookings cost them $615,000 a year. Atlanta Police Department arrests in the fields, in their contacts, they have about 3,603 contacts per year with these people. So just taking that 100 people can make a big difference in looking at the information. Those crimes of interest that we looked at, again, what I'll mention to you is, again, minor nuisance crimes is what we found out that they actually are. If we could either get those crimes diverted to a different center or do something else with the data and information, 8% to 10% of the bookings, could save us $8.5 million. For the Atlanta Detention Center, if we could do 30 to 35% of the bookings with those people, what it looks like, again, $7.5 million overall. So familiar faces, people were booked 10 times more frequently than others that go through the justice system, okay? 20 times more bed nights. So again, 20 times more for those people doing those minor crimes. women were actually overrepresented in this, which was something unique that we didn't think would first come out. But the data is showing us that they're 3 times more common in this process to be arrested. And there was a significant racial disproportion of 92% Black when we looked at this. And that's higher than the national standard by about 4% is what we were looking at. So again, all information as to how we can make this, look at it, making sure that it's equitable as we're looking through the data and information. And with that, what I'm going to do is open it up for any questions that you guys might have for me about the process. But again, the key here is the speed and the power of the data and having the ability to make it out there available for these other resources that we have, that they can actually tap into it. Again, that police officer can get that out on the street, get a response within 20 to 30 seconds at the most, and get the information so they know what to do. And the other thing I'll mention it to you, is that looking at this information, we've actually made other significant investments that we're in the process of right now. We're gonna do a detention center that will be a diversion center. That is actually gonna be about another $5 million that we'll actually take and put towards that, so that way, again, police officers have someplace else to take them if they need to sober up or get some other behavioral health treatment. We're going to do a crisis center for behavioral health as well, which is going to be about a $23 million renovation of a facility that we currently have, which will include some of the housing that we need. We have 500 beds of housing units that we're proposing to build over the next 5 years to help out with some of the placements that we might need. And then we are looking at court standards across the board for all of our courts to make sure that they're processing these people in the same form or fashion as much as possible. So therefore, again, equitable treatment across the board. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. Any questions? Yes, sir. You're talking about this one? Actually, I don't know if I can do that. I don't have that ability up here at this point in time. But if you give me your card and information, I can give this to you. We have it available that we can make available online. But we're taking resources, Fulton government, again, when you think of 40 different departments, you have, think of that in a private sector, that's 40 different divisions. Completely different work lines. They're from public buildings to senior services. So you're going across the spectrum of, when people say, our county manager said when he came from the the private sector to the public sector, he didn't realize how much it is that we really do. Uh-huh. That infrastructure is done through the Tyler Technologies and what they do, but they are using AWS for that service when it comes to Express. Yes, ma'am. How did we pick them? So the question was, how do we pick Tyler Technologies? So through the process, we actually, as a government agency, we have to go out and procure services. Anything over $50,000, we have to go out and actually get bids on. With this contract, we actually had to put a proposal out there. It's about a 30-page proposal that we put together for somebody to fill out. They had to fill that out. We had to review them. We came in for interviews on each of the agencies that applied. And then we selected that agency as a recommendation. We take it to our Board of Commissioners, and then they have to approve it. So overall, our contracts, that's how the general contract services work for us. But again, we have to publicly show who it is we're selecting, why we selected them. Yes. Yeah, the Tyler technology is FedRAMP approved. They have all of the security measures that we have. And that's part of one of the assets that we added here was we actually have a specific section of our cloud services that are specifically for that HIPAA information to ensure that everything is compliant at the federal level and we meet all those standards. We got a few more seconds left. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. The answer is no. We did not have access to that information before because it was all over the place in paper product. And this actually helped us to get all the analytics done in one place, one source, and it's our place of truth.
Yes, with the data points that you showed us, I noticed that, we'll help on reactive, on a reactive manner, right? Because as I understood, you're taking those data points or that feedback already stored in a central location for instance, for the courthouses to process people equally, or for the police to, know the background of people that they are committing a crime, right? But in addition to that, which to me is kind of reactive, is that are those data points used on a proactive manner?
Yes. Yeah, everything we'll use and change policy as to, we actually have gone out and done specific training with the police officers on this is what you do to divert or how do you deal with somebody in a crisis situation. So, okay.